Joy and life to you from God, who is good, who turns all things toward good, and whose desire it is that your life be good in what you do, in what you experience, in the life you lead, in every way, especially in realizing and recognizing all the good blessings given you by your Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Thank you for letting me share with you yet another example of how God can bring something wonderful out of an experience of turbulence and disaster. The end result of Joseph's journey from slavery to Pharaoh's right-hand man is found later in Genesis, long after the flood. This is in chapter 45, verses 4 and 5. Joseph's brothers have come to Egypt looking for help and don't realize the official who's helping them is actually their brother. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come closer to me." And they came closer. He said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life." This is the word of the Lord. I have to begin my thoughts with summarizing that whole story. See, when Joseph was only 17 and his father's favorite, his jealous brothers conspired to kill him, but just sold him into slavery instead. In the ensuing ups and downs of the years that followed, Joseph's fortunes went down to slave, up to overseer in his master's house, back down to prison, where he became known for his interpretation of dreams, which ultimately brought him back up when the reward for interpreting Pharaoh's dreams was a position second only to Pharaoh himself, who placed Joseph in charge of all the land's storehouses. So when a famine devastated the region, Joseph's brothers traveled to Egypt in search of food and ended up standing before Joseph, who knew who they were, even though they didn't recognize this high-ranking Egyptian official as their brother. When he finally reveals himself to them, they are understandably dismayed, knowing exactly what they had done to him years before. This ironic circumstance offered Joseph the perfect opportunity to get back at his brothers. He had food. They didn't. He had power. They had none. But instead, Joseph recognizes that God has had a hand in all this all along. If his brothers had never sold him into slavery, he would never have been in a position to help his family when they needed it most. Neither Joseph nor his brothers could ever have foreseen such a development. But in hindsight, Joseph was able to see all the meaning and divine purpose in it all from beginning to end. Out of turbulence and disaster came life and salvation, courtesy of the hand of God. That didn't make the hardship Joseph endured any easier. It doesn't mean that what the brothers did was right, or that they were following God's will at the time. What it shows is how God can take a great evil and turn it into an even greater good. Thanks be to God. It's a lesson might be good for us to remember sometimes. My quote for you today is by Christoph Friedrich Blumhardt, who reminds us in Action and Waiting that we often think that our human misery is the only thing that should occupy God. But alongside our weak nature, God's power is always present in creation. He is always the life-bringing, wonderful God who touches us also so that we have hope for our own life. And now my blessing for you. When going through difficult times, may you trust that God will use even such times to a good purpose. God grant you a sense of purpose in everything that you do today, tomorrow, and always. Go in the strength and power of God.